Hi there, this is Danny Flexen with the latest edition of SecondsOut ReFLEXions. Here every Monday at 4:30 PM to talk about the boxing action of the weekend just gone. And it was a real kind of game of two halves at the Frank Warren show at the Copper Box Arena on Saturday night. Superb performance from Anthony Yarde to gain revenge over Lyndon Arthur after losing their first fight and regaining his position as the WBO #1 contender for the winner of Joe Smith Jr. against Callum Johnson in January. But the flip side, unfortunately, was another dark day for boxing officiating in the UK, as referee Steve Gray did not disqualify Hamzah Sheeraz for landing more than one blow on Bradley Skeete as he was on the floor in round 8, which ultimately led, I think it's fair to say, to Skeete's stoppage defeat in the following round, having dominated much of the previous 7 before the 2 that I've just mentioned. So we'll talk about that in due course. Obviously, as you can see in the background, if you didn't already know, I'm sure you did, it's Christmas time and there's no need to be afraid, hopefully, unless you're going to mass gatherings that you're not really allowed to do. But we won't talk too much about that. We're not a politics show here on ReFLEXions. Let's talk about the action at the Copper Box on Saturday night. And we'll start with Anthony Yarde in the main event. Superb display from him. Throws one back in the face of people who demanded he do a massive shake-up of his training approach, his team. They did bring James Cook in as an assistant trainer. I think he proved invaluable. But Tunde Ajayi stayed as head trainer. And they got the job done in very impressive style. Yarde came out, obviously. So Yarde had talked in the build-up to the fight about how because he was known as a big puncher and a dominant fighter before losing to Lyndon Arthur, he felt that in the first fight, because he hadn't been dominant, because he felt it was a close fight and he was, fighting on the back foot, not particularly aggressively, that was why the judges didn't go in his favour. So he would need to be more aggressive, even if he was going to win on points. Now, I don't agree with that at all. I think the decision in Lyndon Arthur's favour, though it was split, was merited. I thought Arthur did enough, definitely, to win the fight first time around. And I didn't think Yarde was penalised for not being aggressive enough. I just think he was outboxed and his work rate wasn't particularly good, and he didn't have the change in approach to get inside and get past Lyndon's jab in the first fight. Second fight was completely different in that he used really good head movement to bob and weave his way inside the jab and never really let Arthur establish it. And that was and is Lyndon's key punch. Yarde was on him from the start, put a lot of investment into body work as well, which I think paid dividends, slowed Arthur's movement down. Again, another key to his victory in the first fight. And when Yarde was able to get inside, he was quick to let his hands go. Arthur was holding quite a lot from early on. Obviously, that was part of their plan, I think, to tie Yarde up early, let the storm kind of peter its way out, and then come on in the second half of the fight when Yarde would be more tired. Sensible plan, in my view, given Yarde is quite muscle-bound, has been known to fight explosively in bursts, not really strong usually in the latter stages of long fights. But we never got to see if that happened or not. James Cook, from what we've been told, has added a lot to Yarde's cardio game as much as anything else. So Yarde insisted he did have the stamina to go 12 hard rounds. We certainly went 3.5 hard rounds because he set a ferocious pace from the start. Even when Yarde was on the way up, kind of knocking over people he was expected to beat, we rarely saw him come out so urgently in a fight as he did on Saturday night. I mean, he kind of picks his shots, bobs and weaves his way in, likes to have a look, usually, even against moderate opposition. But this time, in what was a real crucial fight for him, he unloaded every time he got into range until he was held and the referee had to call break. And then just gradually broke Arthur's spirit, as well as physically broke him down, until round 4 landed a flurry, topped off by a big right hand. Arthur went down, looked very dazed, rose as the count was about to reach 10. The referee called it a technical count out or a knockout. I think he was up just in time, but he didn't look in any condition to continue, and didn't look pretty kind of desperate to continue either. I think he would have rose a little bit earlier in the count if he had his faculties at the time. So a great win for Yarde. Still some unanswered questions in terms of stamina and outboxing someone in a long, tricky kind of chess match of a fight. But I guess luckily for him, when he challenges the winner of Callum Johnson and Joe Smith Jr., we probably won't have to see those questions answered then either, because they're both big punchers, both not really known as kind of technical marvels, though Callum Johnson was a very good amateur. So I think we'll see another kind of explosive contest when that comes to fruition. But yeah, congratulations to Yarde, to Tunde, and to James Cook. It was a real team effort, and just a great win, the most conclusive rematch win you'll see in recent times. And it was a must win for Yarde, and he got the job done. I know there's some people out there who feel we should see a third fight because they've now got one win each. But Yarde is the WBO #1 again. Promoter Frank Warren has already said he wants the winner of Yarde Arthur. This was before the fight, so it's now Yarde to challenge the winner of Joe Smith Jr. and Callum Johnson for that WBO light heavyweight title. So we'll look forward to that in 2022. But yeah, now we have to go to the less rewarding part of Saturday night, and that was the Bradley Skeete fight against Hamzah Sheeraz. And it should have been rewarding, certainly for Skeete, and satisfying for Skeete, because for 7 rounds he completely outboxed the taller, rangier, younger, fresher, unbeaten Hamzah Sheeraz, who looked great on the way up, had done everything asked of him so far. This was a big step up in class for him. But Skeete had been inactive before his recent return, hadn't fought anything like this level of opposition for a long time. So in a way, it was a step up for him as well. Although he'd fought superior opposition on paper in the past, it was the distant past at this stage. Skeete's getting on in age. Obviously, he's younger than me, but he is getting on in age for a boxer. And most people picked Sheeraz to win, albeit after a tough test. Well, it looked like Skeete was going to upset the apple cart. He used his greatest speed and footwork to get in and out effectively. And Skeete, bear in mind, in his glory days at welterweight, was used to being a taller, longer fighter, whereas against Sheeraz, he was conceding those factors. Despite all that, still managed to get inside, land a couple of shots, never got too greedy, never stayed in the pocket too long, at least until later in the fight, and we'll talk about that. But didn't stay in the pocket too long, landed 1s and 2s, got back out of range, and getting out of range against someone like Sheeraz is easier said than done, but he managed it pretty effectively. Blocked, weaved, rolled really well under the left hook as well, I thought. Slipped the right hand on most occasions. Just a real textbook performance. Bit of a masterclass. Old man Sheeraz. And the thing that worried me, at least until kind of the middle rounds, was that Sheeraz, despite getting the right advice in the corner, I thought, from Ricky Funes, struggled to really change it up and to increase the pace when he needed to. He needed to move his feet quicker, get forward a bit quicker, react to what Skeete was doing, and also to lead off a lot more. We were getting a lot of single jabs, lead right hands, when really he should have been doubling or tripling up the jab and following it in as quickly as possible, because Skeete was very, very slippery, and and investing in the body a bit more as well from Sheeraz, I think, to slow him down. He'll learn from all this. I mean, that's the positive side, as well as him getting a win that he probably shouldn't have got. He will learn from this and from the rematch if one is made. But yeah, let's go to the closing moments. And in round 8, Skeete was under pressure, heading backwards towards one of the corners. Went down. It's hard to say whether he went down under pressure or he chose to kind of take a knee. But as he did so, Sheeraz threw a further 3 shots. One of them landed when Skeete was almost kneeling on the canvas, so we might allow him that one. That was a left hook. But then the follow-up right hand, which kind of grazed him, and the left hook, which was a bigger shot than anything Sheeraz landed, apart from maybe the right hand later in the round. So probably the second best shot Sheeraz landed in the whole fight was landed when Skeete was prone on the canvas and had already taken 1 clean shot from the canvas. So two shots, clear, clean, on the head, landed by Sheeraz while Skeete was already down. And they weren't really fast shots either, although it was seen as like part of a combination. So it was right hand, left hook, right hand. They weren't rapid fire. So it didn't seem like Sheeraz would have been unable to stop himself throwing those shots. So referee Steve Gray came over, Didn't count, sent Sheeraz to a neutral corner, spoke to Skeete, who kind of reaffirmed the fact that he'd been hit on the deck, which I think Gray already knew. And it did seem like, and I'll speak to Dominic Ingle, Skeete's trainer, later on today, hopefully, but it did seem like Ingle was advising Skeete to stay down, knowing that if he was deemed unable to continue, then it would force referee Steve Gray to make a difficult decision and to disqualify the house fighter in Hamzah Sheeraz. It's also been alleged since, I've seen somewhere, that Steve Gray intentionally, I'm not sure how intentional this was, but got in the way in the middle of Ingle and Skeete, so in Ingle's eye line when Skeete was down on the canvas and Gray was talking to him so that he couldn't give him advice. I'm not sure how true that is, and also I'm sure Skeete could still hear what Ingle was saying, although his brain was probably a little bit frazzled at the time, having just been hit with several defenceless shots. So Steve Gray and Bradley Skeete had the chat. Eventually, Bradley Skeete got back up and carried on with the fight because he's a brave warrior and he's not going to quit because you're not thinking straight. You're still in the heat of battle, and he's thinking, right, I'm not going to go out like this, even though it was unfair that he should never have been hit with those shots on the floor. And the fight continued, and it shouldn't have, and that's kind of the main reason for the injustice. Sheeraz landed 2 clean shots. They didn't seem unavoidable. It was while Skeete was prone on the canvas. It legitimately affected the impact. The impact legitimately affected the outcome of the fight, as we shall see in a minute. And he should have been disqualified. Fighters have been disqualified for much less in the past, and I think for consistency and for fairness and for justice, he should have been disqualified. It's unfortunate. Sheeraz would have learned from it, not to make those mistakes in future, but he should have been thrown out. Fight went on. Towards the end of the 8th round, Skeete was dropped by a big shot. I think it was a big right hand that landed on the jaw. Incredible shot, and may have dropped him regardless, but we will never know, and that's kind of the problem. I think Skeete would have been more able to stay out of range if he hadn't just been clocked with that massive left hook on the floor. Got counted, bell went, back to his corner. Dominic Ingle did his best in the minutes interval to freshen his man back up and to emphasise the fact that he needed to stay out of range, maybe take a round to just clear his head. But it was never likely to happen. The effects of that shot on the floor, plus the right hand, the legit right hand that landed, was still there. And early into the 9th round, Sheeraz unloaded. Skeete went down for a 3rd time. And upon rising, even though he showed his willingness to continue, Steve Gray decided he'd seen enough. And I've got no real quarrel with that part of it, because by that point, looking into Skeete's eyes, even though he got up in time and said he wanted to carry on, I can see why. As a referee, you look at him and think, he's been knocked down a few times now, he's dazed. It's probably safer to wave it off. No issue with that. But Skeete should never have been in that position unless it was done legitimately by Sheeraz while Skeete was up and defending himself. So yeah, bad decision by the referee. Calls have been made, a complaint's been made to the board of control to make overturn the decision and make it a no contest. I'm not sure there's any precedent for that, so I'm not hopeful that will happen. But you would hope that a rematch would be offered by Frank Warren's team, and if not, would be ordered by the WBO for whose international belt the fight was for, or intercontinental or European. I think it was European actually. So the WBO European belt was the one at stake, and Sheeraz still has it, of course. So you would hope maybe they'd order a rematch in the sense of fair play, but we don't always associate those words with a sanctioning body. So let's wait and see. But yeah, I hope to speak to Dominic Ingle later today, so it might be up around the same time you watch this. We shall see. But yeah, I've texted Skeete already with my sympathy, of course, and no, animosity towards Sheeraz. He made a mistake, youthful exuberance, if you like, and landing those extra shots. And he shouldn't have done it, and he should have been disqualified for it. But it's just like a fighter getting the benefit of a bad decision. Sheeraz isn't the one who makes the call whether to throw him out or not. Steve Gray's to blame for that. And I like Steve. I'm sure he's a very good referee and judge for the most part. But when you make a mistake, I think it's right that you hold your hands up. And I hope that's what he does, because referees aren't made to speak publicly about these things. But I hope he goes to the board, General Secretary Robert Smith, and says, look, Rob, I've watched it back. I hold my hands up. I should have disqualified him. And then that will make the board's actions a lot easier going forward. But again, we'll see. Now, I want to know what you guys think. What did you make of Yarde's performance against Arthur, and do you think he's ready for the winner of Joe Smith Jr. against Callum Johnson? And also, what did you make of Hamzah Sheeraz's win over Bradley Skeete? Am I being overly harsh, or do you agree with me that he should have been disqualified? Let me know what you think. I'll be back on Thursday for FLEXpectations, looking ahead to the weekend's action, which includes Conor Benn and Katie Taylor, both in action, not against each other, although that might be quite a competitive fight while it lasted. On Thursday, the fight is on Saturday, and I'll look ahead to those. Also, Hennessy Sports have got a show this weekend, and there's action out in the US as well. So we've plenty to look forward to on Thursday in FLEXpectations, 4:30 p.m. And the next Reflections will be next Monday at the same time. Really appreciate you watching. Please make sure you like, comment below, share, all the usual stuff. And I'll see you again next week. Cheers. Thursday, then next week. Cheers.